Okay, so continuing our little series on lumbopelvic stability, we're now going to go on. We've moved the pelvis back and forth, and now we're going to find neutral, and then we're going to see if we can maintain that while we do X. So we say the challenge is keeping that organization and then doing fill in the blank. So fill in the blank can be marching a leg, it could be moving an arm, it could be meditating about going across the floor, a cerebral challenge. So the question is, can you sustain that lumbopelvic stability and then do something else with a limb, with your mind, with your toes? So let's give it a try. Meet me down on the mat. All right, so we find ourselves again in this hook lying position. We've talked about the topography of the spine. I'm trying to get my ribs to sort of melt towards the floor. I might have to think of expanding the back of my rib cage to make that happen. I'm trying to have a little tiny arch in my lowest low back. And that conventional cue of ASIS, hip bones and pubic bone on the same plane, level to the floor. So I'm going to take a moment to establish that. And then once I feel that I have a good sense for that neutral, then I start to move my core infrastructure in on it. So I can be quite passive in my muscle tissue, or without moving any joints, I can start to move my muscle tone into a somewhat contracted position to try to hold this area stable. And once I have a feel for that, maybe pressing my sacrum onto the mat or envisioning a little shrink wrapping of the whole torso or illuminating my spine, you'll have to explore and find images that work for you. I'm going to go on and do X. In this case, I'm going to march. So I'm going to move my leg, creasing at the hip, and try not to move this pelvic lumbar relationship. So can I roll through the foot and take a foot off the ground and put it back down? Then I do the other side. And I always tease dancers, I know you can do this move. I don't wonder if you can flex your hip to 90 degrees. What I wonder is, can you flex your hip to 90 degrees without moving your trunk? So that's what I'm not so sure about. That might be what you're not so sure about. Can you keep your ribs melting into the floor, keep your pelvic lumbar relationship, not allow your spine to twist, not allow your hips to twist, no hula, no shimmy in the pelvis, no side bending, no twisting. How do you do that? You might have to think about the relationship that your foot has to the floor. You might have to create an image for yourself. You might have a little one-word cue like press and go. Let's look at this from another angle. Okay, so here I am lying in that same position. You can only see my trunk. And I'm going to move one leg to tabletop and back down. So sometimes dancers think they're doing this correctly, but actually there's some of this going on. Do you just see how this area moved? This or this. So really trying to stabilize the trunk as we go. Let's look at one more angle. All right, here's an aerial view. So sometimes dancers hike a hip when they move a leg like this. Sometimes they twist their pelvis, rotating the lumbar spine as they lift a leg. Instead, we want total stillness, a placid lake at dawn, as we shift our weight from one leg to the other.